People say a person's life can change in a moment, but they never imagine that moment arriving on a quiet morning, when a father trades his daughter's future for the price of a horse. 19-year-old Alina stood barefoot at the doorway, clutching the wooden frame as if it could anchor her to a world that had just slipped out from under her feet. Her father didn't meet her eyes. He simply held the rope of a tall brown stallion, his fingers trembling with excitement, not guilt. She could hear her heart beat louder than the rustling leaves in their yard. She kept waiting for someone to shout that this was a mistake, that a girl couldn't be exchanged like a sack of grain. But silence answered her. Cold, heavy, unforgiving silence. The stranger waiting outside, an older farmer with weathered hands, stood quietly, his hat held respectfully against his chest. Alina expected cruelty in his eyes, the same kind of coldness she had grown used to at home, but instead, she saw something far more confusing. She saw sadness. Almost as if he understood exactly what was being taken from her. Her father signed a piece of paper, barely glancing at her. With each pen stroke, Alina felt pieces of herself slipping away, her home, her identity, her childhood. Her father didn't hug her. Didn't say goodbye. He simply took the reins of the horse he had dreamed of for years, rubbed its neck with a smile she had never seen him give to her, and walked inside, shutting the door with a finality that echoed like thunder in her chest. And that was how she learned she had been sold. Her throat felt too tight to breathe. She stared at the closed door, willing it to open again, hoping, just for 1 second, that the man who raised her would realize what he'd done and call her back. But all she heard was the faint clinking of the horse's bridle inside. He had already chosen. The farmer took a slow step toward her. "You don't have to come with me if you don't want to," he said gently. His voice didn't match the brutality of the moment. It was soft. Almost apologetic. She blinked. What did he mean she didn't have to? The world behind her had vanished. The only path left was the one toward him. Still, she didn't speak. She didn't trust her voice, not when her heart felt like shattered glass inside her ribcage. He didn't reach for her. Didn't tug her arm. Didn't treat her like something that belonged to him. He simply waited. In that moment, the stillness between them felt heavier than any scream. Finally, her knees trembling, she took one hesitant step forward. Not because she trusted him. Not because she felt safe. But because staying meant standing outside a house where she was no longer a daughter, no longer wanted, no longer anything. The farmer led the way without looking back too often, as if he feared overwhelming her. His steps were slow, measured, respectful. Every few minutes he glanced over his shoulder to make sure she hadn't disappeared, or changed her mind. When they reached his farm, she braced herself for harshness. For orders. For rules. For the kind of treatment a bought girl might expect. But instead, he opened the door to a modest farmhouse and stepped aside, letting her enter first. "Kitchen's there," he said quietly. "Bedroom across the hall. You can choose whichever room you want. You're not bound to anything here." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. People who bought others didn't usually offer choices. But he said it like he meant it, like he had rehearsed the words to make sure she knew she wasn't trapped. Still, fear held her heart hostage. That night, when she lay on the bed, she didn't sleep. She couldn't. Every creak of the house made her curl tighter against the wall. Every gust of wind felt like footsteps. She didn't trust him, not yet. She didn't trust anyone. But he stayed in his own room. He didn't knock on her door. He didn't call her name. He didn't check on her or demand she check on him. He simply let her be. Days passed like this, quiet, strange, confusing. She stayed out of sight, watching him from windows as he fixed the fence, fed the animals, and carried hay across the yard. He never raised his voice. He never spoke harshly. He never looked at her with the hunger or entitlement she had feared. One morning, she found a book on the kitchen table. No note. No explanation. Just a simple gesture. She touched it with trembling fingers. It was a collection of stories she used to love as a child, and somehow, though she had never told him, he had noticed. The wall she had built around herself didn't come crashing down, but a small crack appeared, tiny, fragile, important. Another day, He repaired the broken step on the front porch, quietly telling her, "Didn't want you getting hurt." That was all he said. And yet the words stayed with her long after he walked away. Little by little, she began helping. She swept the porch, fed the chickens, boiled water for tea. Not because he asked, he never did, but because doing something made her feel less like she was drifting through her own life. One evening, she found him sitting on the fence, staring at the fields as the sun melted into the horizon. Something about him looked unbearably lonely, like a man who had spent years talking only to the wind. She approached slowly. "Why?" She swallowed hard. "Why did you take me?" He didn't look at her. Didn't speak right away. For a moment, only the sound of crickets filled the space between them. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost fragile. "I didn't take you. I just saw a girl who deserved better than what was happening to her. And I hoped, maybe I could give her a safe place to start again." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Ever. Her father had traded her away like spare goods. Yet here was a man who treated her like a person, like someone worth protecting, not owning. A warmth spread through her chest, unfamiliar and almost frightening. But it was real. And it was hers. That night, as she lay in bed, she closed her eyes not with fear, but with a strange, quiet hope. She wasn't healed yet. She wasn't whole. But for the first time, she felt like she wasn't just surviving. She was beginning again. People think love begins with a confession, a touch, a kiss, but sometimes, it begins much quieter. Sometimes, it begins in the spaces between two broken people who slowly learn how to breathe again. Alina didn't realize when the fear inside her began to soften into something warmer. She didn't notice the exact day she started feeling safe in the lonely farmhouse, or the moment she stopped checking the locks 3 times before bed. But one spring morning, as sunlight spilled across the fields and birds filled the air with soft chirps, she caught herself humming while hanging laundry. The sound startled her. Her own voice felt foreign, light, almost happy. She froze with a damp shirt in her hands, staring at the farmer who stood a few yards away splitting wood. The steady rhythm of his axe matched the new, unexpected rhythm inside her chest. She wasn't supposed to feel this way. She wasn't supposed to smile when he walked into the room. Or feel a flutter when he quietly handed her tea. Or feel warmth spread under her ribs when he complimented her bread, even though it was burnt on the bottom. But she did. She felt all of it. And the realization scared her because she didn't know what he felt, if he felt anything at all. What she didn't know was that the farmer was fighting his own silent war. Every night, he lay awake staring at the wooden ceiling above him, rehearsing words he feared she would never want to hear. "You can leave any time," he'd whisper into the dark, practicing. "But if you choose to stay, I want a life with you." But each time morning came, he swallowed those words. He was terrified of taking her freedom away, even in the smallest way. Terrified of making her feel owned. Terrified she would think his kindness came with strings. So he stayed quiet, even though every day he grew more attached to the girl who had been dropped into his life like a wounded bird learning to fly again. One late afternoon, dark clouds gathered over the farm, heavy and swollen with rain. Alina rushed toward the barn to bring the chickens inside before the storm hit. She found the farmer there, struggling to lift a heavy sack of feed. Without thinking, she hurried toward him and grabbed the other end. He looked surprised. "You don't have to." "I know," she said softly. "But I want to." Those words settled over the barn like a warm blanket. They meant more to him than she could ever understand. For the first time, their hands brushed, and this time she didn't flinch. She didn't withdraw. A tiny spark passed between them, something gentle but electric, and both of them froze for half a second longer than ordinary people should. That night thunder crashed across the sky, shaking the little house. Alina sat curled on her bed, hugging her knees, old fears rising like ghosts she thought she had buried. She remembered storms as a child, how she would hide while her father slammed doors and cursed at the weather. Thunder had always meant trouble. It had always meant shouting. A soft knock came at her door. "Alina?" His voice was warm, careful, like he didn't want to startle her. "I made tea." Thought maybe it would help with the storm. She hesitated, her heart thudding. Then she opened the door. There he stood, holding 2 cups, steam swirling gently in the dim hallway light. His hands trembled slightly, not from the storm, but from something else. Something tender. She took the cup. Their fingers brushed again. This time, she didn't look away. This time, she let herself feel it. They sat at the small kitchen table, the storm growling outside but somehow sounding far away. The candles flickered, casting soft shadows across his face. He looked tired, lonely, and gentle all at once. "Why are you so good to me?" she asked suddenly. His eyes widened slightly. "Because you deserve good. More than you know." He paused, then added quietly. "Because someone should have treated you kindly long before I ever met you." Her breath shook. No one had ever spoken to her with such sincerity. The storm rumbled louder, but inside the farmhouse, everything felt still, soft, fragile, real. "You're afraid I'll leave?" she whispered, the truth slipping out before she could stop it. His jaw tightened. He didn't deny it. "I'm afraid every day," he admitted. "Afraid you'll wake up and realize you were never meant for a lonely man like me. Afraid that once you heal, you'll see you deserve a better life than anything I could give." She felt something deep in her chest crack open, not from pain, but from recognition. All this time she thought she was the only one afraid. She reached for his hand. Her fingers hovered for a second, trembling, then landed softly on his. He inhaled sharply, as if the slightest touch from her was enough to shake the world under his feet. "I won't leave," she said, her voice a little stronger this time. "Not if you want me here." He looked at her like she had just handed him sunlight. "Alina, I want you here more than I've ever wanted anything." Those words melted every last wall inside her. Something shifted. Something bloomed. Something healed. She leaned her head gently, hesitantly, against his chest. He froze, stunned, but then slowly wrapped one arm around her, holding her as if she were precious and breakable. His heartbeat was steady, warm, comforting. It didn't feel like the beat of a man who bought her. It felt like the heartbeat of someone who finally found the one person who made sense in his quiet, lonely world. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Not from sadness. Not from fear. But from the overwhelming realization that she wasn't alone anymore. He had given her a home without asking for anything. He had given her dignity when she arrived with none. He had given her kindness every single day. And now, she was giving him something back, something priceless. Trust. Choice. Love. Outside, the rain softened into a gentle drizzle, as if the sky had finally calmed too. In that little farmhouse, a 19-year-old girl who had been sold for a horse discovered what it meant to be valued. And a lonely farmer who expected nothing from life discovered what it meant to be loved. Not by chance. Not by force. Not by obligation. But by 2 hearts that found each other in the quiet, unexpected corners of a broken world, and healed together.